Yes. Whatever that file is slide across. Okay, thank you. So next thing is 1.5 approval of the agenda. Are there any additions? Any deletions? Changes? Would you like to ask for a motion? Yes, trustee Ness.
I move that the board approve the agenda that it presented.
All question, all those in favor? Passed. Thank you. The minutes of the meeting. The last meeting, someone put forward that motion. Was Taylor,
I move that the board approve the minutes of the regular meeting held February 21st, 2024 as circulated.
Is there any discussion on those minutes? Then I will call the question, all those in favor? Thank you. I will look at the board priorities, the goals and priorities. You. Now the executive administrative reports, and we'll start with the board chair report, board part 1. Everyone's had a chance to look over these. Are there any questions? Thank you. And we'll move to the superintendent report. Any questions for the superintendent? Trustee Miller.
Thank you. Under faith leadership, my apologies, I didn't know bullet numbers this time, but it did mention organizing SPICE registration, retreat registrations. I'm just wondering how many have been able to register for the SPICE conference this year.
Superintendent Bouchard, could you answer that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Cardinal if she has that number.
So there are 12 registrants, and that includes the Edmund Parham.
Excellence in Catholic
Excellence in Catholic education. To my apologies. That came out of my mouth, and then I realized it was wrong.
Thank you. Trustee Miller.
Thank you. Under visionary leadership, it mentions the third path and mental health literacy initiatives. And I'm just wondering what impact are we seeing in the division in regards to the third path program so far, if you can comment on anything on that. And for the mental health literacy, was this for the staff and students or just one or the other? And what so far has been the impact of it?
Superintendent Bouchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Cardinal to comment.
So anecdotally, we are seeing an increased understanding of what it means for student belonging and student safety. Those are a couple of the foundational requirements for the third path. And so what is happening is that there is a more of a common language within the division in regards to trauma and understanding backgrounds of students, and just really changing the relationship between staff and students. Some of the things that are happening, there are more groups that are helping students to become more involved within the school and to build relationships. And they're also seeing that there's more of a better level of patience and understanding in regards to where the students are coming from, and loving them where they're at and seeing Christ in every child. The administration has commented that the foundational 4 of the third path have been the most important. And again, they're building that child-adult connection, and they're being very deliberate about it. The mental health literacy is intended for staff, essentially to have an understanding of the background of different kinds of mental health conditions or issues that students may be experiencing, again, to help with that, to build the empathy in terms of when they're working with their students.
Is there another question, trustee Miller?
Yes, thank you. Two more. Okay, so under First Nation, ensuring First Nations maintain Inuit education for all students. It mentions about when submitting the Jordan's Principle grant. I'm wondering what the circumstances around that. Has it become complicated in waiting to resubmit the application, which means we won't get the money, until later in the year? Delaying that, were students impacted in that? What are the circumstances around the Jordan's Principle funding?
Superintendent Bouchard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is more a change in process with the application. I'll have Assistant Superintendent Cardinal maybe explain what has changed in our process.
So we have been approached by Jordan's Principal to complete a group application on behalf of the division. And so because what's happening is every school is applying on their own for their own projects or supports. And so they used us as a pilot project to essentially collaborate within all of our schools to produce one application for Jordan's Principal. The reasoning resubmitting was simply they forgot to ask for birthdays, and so we had to. So we created the group application and then had to resubmit with some of the information that they had forgot to ask. So it's been a good process, and I do appreciate knowing and having a better understanding of what the projects are. I mean, you have an idea, but we had an in-depth conversation with administration in terms of what they were planning for their schools and what the cost of that would look like.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. My last one is under school authority and provisions. It's in regards to the interim report for low incident supports for the LISP grant. As always, I'm kind of interested about the time it takes to fill out all of these grants for our staff. Possibly how many students were impacted or are being impacted by this grant. And is this something that might look that it should be maybe mainstream funding as part of the funding manual versus grant application process?
Bouchard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assistant Superintendent Cardinal, if you could comment, please.
So perhaps it is a result of your advocacy. That could be possible because the process this time around was more simple. They could choose, so the Director of Student Services could choose either to have a conversation or to submit a report. And so she chose to have a conversation with the people managing the grant. And so she felt that that was much more productive. It was a good process, and there was follow-up to connect to other supports that they might need. The pre-planning, she said, was about an hour before the meeting happened, and then the conversation took about an hour. So about a total of, 2 hours, give or take a little bit, but she did feel that this was a much better process.
Good news.
Yes.
Very good news.
Yes, it
Thank
is,
you.
yeah.
Any other questions for the superintendent?
Did I answer all parts of your question, or did I miss anything?
We're good with the answer.
So we will move on to the Secretary Treasurer's report. Are there any questions for the Secretary Treasurer? questions? So, Secretary Treasurer, we need to go into the third quarter financial report. Yeah.
Um, it's the board is mandated to take care of oversight over financial, the fiscal responsibilities of fiscal management of the division. This is a report that we bring before the board for the quarter ended end of February. And obviously the numbers are actually cumulative in September to the end of February. This report also highlights actually the compartmentalized in terms of the priorities that the board sets itself for the division. We are actually going to be highlighting to you how we've performed in those particular pillars. Another faith life, we see that we have spent about 44% in terms of the budget that were actually provided for this pillar. And we see that under the central office, there's still a significant amount that still needs to be spent, and similarly also even in the school budget-based budgets. We actually see that there will be an accelerated spending, especially in the view of the blueprints and spice that are actually coming. So that budget is called the integration. So therefore, those are the major items that are still standing in that area. On the professional development, we also see that we have 45% expenditure on that. So and we also are expecting that is also going to be exhausted before by the end of June. Under the First Nations, you also see that we are on about 55% expenditure in terms of meaning that the activities that are set to achieve that particular goal are actually moving in the right direction. And what I also want to highlight is that there has been a redeployment of funds that we spend under central office that are now been redeployed to the schools to make sure that the budget, the activities that are meant to advance the First Nations in the team unit is actually carried out, and it will be carried out in the schools by designated staff in the schools.
Still update.
Okay. Under the specialized learning supports, we also see that we are on track in terms of achieving that particular goal by the expenditures that we actually have in that particular area. And most of that is also salaries, so that will happen. And Madam Chair, then I'll actually take you into the summaries of the statement of operations. We have been the month of February. We are actually halfway through the year, and we expect that we should be by and large 50% expenditures over our normal budgets. As we can see, overall, our revenues are like 53%. That because there are certain amounts that we see every time. But just to highlight, like with the federal government, First Nations, you see that we're already over 100%. That number is likely going to increase because I think we're just talking about the generous principle grants. They are the ones that actually certainly push these actuals, whilst our budget do not include much of those generous principle because we don't know exactly how much we are actually going to get in our schools. So that number is going to increase as we go forward. I can also highlight that obviously the federal government has actually reviewed some of the grants that they had already approved, and they actually increased in the face of increased costs. So they recently approved that. On the you also see, I just want to highlight the interest income as another amount that is significant in that area, which is also because of the good interest that we're also receiving from the bank. Under the expenses, by and large, we had about 53% as well, which is consistent with the revenue growth or revenues that we actually received. And we are happy to say that I'm sure to meet our budget. And some of the expenses that we have here are also, paid upfront. And as we go towards the end of the year, we expected that the proportion of the revenues that we receive will be more than perhaps the expenses that we will be spending, because some of those that were actually upfronted will not happen in the ensuing months. I'll take you to the next page. This page actually gives more detail in terms of our expenses, where it is actually bucketed into instructions, operating expenses, transportation, building systems, and external services. But otherwise, it's really more of same information that is. Then lastly, I will take you to Appendix B, which highlights just like on the first part, I just need to highlight to indicate that we actually presenting the spring approved budget, which is in blue, the budget, the fall update, which is in red, and our actuals are in yellow. And we can actually see the reason why we also needed to show our fall update is really because our expenditure, our budgets in terms of are actually updated based upon the new funding or the new grants that we get at the beginning of the year, and obviously then we actually factor that in terms of our expenditures. So we can actually see that yes, overall, our schools, because our schools operate on a 10-month period, we should expect that we would spend about 60% of their budgets, and we see some are actually lagging. It appears like they are lagging. Yes, truly they are, but speaking to the schools, definitely they have highlighted the specific items that are coming up. That they will be spending those monies in related that will actually benefit the students, the current students. The intention is not to carry forward most of these monies into the new year. But however, you may actually find that some schools may also need to put away certain amounts into operating reserves or into capital reserves to ensure that there are certain capital items that they can't pay all at once in 1 year, but they need to build it over some period. But otherwise, we are hopeful that our schools will be able to use most of those funds in the current students. By and large, I would say that's the report.
So a lot of schools spend a larger amount in the months of May and June, with field trips and so on.
Yes.
By the
Yeah, we actually expect by the time we get to, they've already started really spending now. By the time we get to the end of April, beginning of May, we'll see most of these already have ramped it up. Some of them, because you can actually need, some of the money is actually budgeted to purchase certain like equipment, small equipment. It's not those large equipment, but small equipment. But they didn't want to do that early enough because they wanted to make sure that they're in a strong position first before, strong position, not so that we don't go into deficit before they actually spend in those items. But certainly, for the schools that appear to be under below, St. Andre, also have Godfather in Home, and the Sacred Heart. All those monies actually that going to be spent. Like Sacred Heart, they already spent a significant amount of it.
So if they're saving for some big project, they can save for a couple of years to make sure they for that big project.
Yes.
What you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct. If they are want to buy, for example, a photocopier, they may not be able to sell it in the post. To buy it in 1 year, they may actually need to put away little by little over the years, and to be able for them to be able to invest certain equipment that they have in the schools. So that will then be moved into the tourist.
Are there any other questions for Secretary to the Treasurer? Yes. Thank you, Trustee Jane.
Nick, so the schools that haven't spent all their money and may not spend all their money, and you said they can't carry it over, right? So then what happens?
They can carry over. So
So,
we as a division, we have a policy where schools can actually carry forward 2% of their allocation, 2%. That is the amount that they are allowed to carry over.
so if they're only carrying 2%, what happens to the rest of?
Yeah, okay. And the other amounts, as I indicated, they may actually be able to put away into capital reserves that are managed by the schools, where they want to buy certain equipment that they can't buy just in 1 year. They actually need to put away little by little over the years to enable them to have enough to buy equipment, such equipment. So that amount, by the end of the year, they will move that amount into capital reserves. And it will stay there until they purchase that they spend it on the specified equipment.
And what happens if they go over the budget? Some are already, right? They have no more rules.
Yeah, if they go above the budget, that is not encouraged. That is not encouraged at all. But what you may actually find where they are going above the budget, they have a growth that's 2% that they carry over from the previous year, which will then be dropped to cover that particular thing.
Yes, Trustee Marco.
On page 5, the statement of operations, there's a line item listing other revenues, and it has a 442% received.
Yes.
Can you provide some insight as to what that is? It's right above total revenues.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Other revenues that we have, we would normally have like small items that we actually tend to sell.
Okay.
Okay. For example, there were some
Surplus items.
some equipment that was actually sold.
Okay.
So those ones we don't budget them. So
Gotcha.
it's difficult to budget for them, but it's something that will just come without.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just an idea of just those ones, isn't it?
Questions? Move on to business items.
So
On to the Edmund Parr Teacher Award. So just people watching, each year the ASBA honors 6 outstanding first-year teachers with the Edmund Parr Teacher Award. School boards will be nominated in first-year K to 12 teacher who has taught in the Alberta School Jurisdiction, which is a member of the Alberta School Board Association, ASBA. This year's nominee, I am proud to announce from Star Catholic, is Melissa. If I don't say this wrong, Tisjaran. Did I get that right? Okay, good. Who is a first-year teacher at Father Lacombe School in Lacombe, and I was happy to meet her a few days ago. So we're very proud of her in Lacombe and happy with this. I was once a member of the Edmund Parr Committee, and it was an amazing experience. Melissa's principal, Maria Wagner, said that Melissa lives and breathes for teaching. I've never met a more dedicated and passionate first-year teacher. She is really impressive, and she tells me that she is happiest when she is in her classroom with her students. That's what she told me too. You can see this daily. This has led to a positive and supportive learning environment in Melissa's classroom. The students love her. Melissa consistently uses encouraging words, praise, and recognition. She is extremely patient and understanding, always focuses on the strengths of her students. Melissa goes above and beyond to find ways for her students to feel successful and cared about in the classroom. She relates to her students through love, laughter, smiles, and always brings excitement and animation to her lessons. Lots of good things to say about Melissa. We're very proud of her. Did you want to add anything, Trustee?
Oh, I would reiterate that Melissa's principal is quite ecstatic and feels that it's a first-year teacher like she has never seen before. So she's very proud to watch her grow and see her start off so well.
The teacher said we're also proud of her. Her principal said we're also proud of her here at Father Lacombe Catholic Schools. And we know she is well deserving of this award. And we as trustees are very proud of her as part of STAR and our nominee for the Edmund Parr Teacher Award. Anything anyone would like to add? Go to the Excellence in Catholic Education Award. Yes, I will turn it over to Assistant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very pleased to provide you information regarding Star Catholic's identified winner for the Excellence in Catholic Education Award. I know the information is in the backgrounder, but this year it is Tammy Bissett, also from Father Lacombe. Tammy is a veteran teacher, not a first-year teacher like our other award recipient. She has 26 years of experience, but there's a few things in here that speaks to Tammy. And one thing she said was, as a Catholic educator, I'm called to help students develop a deeper relationship with God, understand Catholic teachings, and apply them in their daily lives. That is foundational to why we are Catholic students. And Tammy is also a dedicated volunteer at her home parish in Lacombe, St. Stephen's Church, and she's part of the parish sacrament team and children's liturgy program and has done so for years. So we are very pleased to identify Tammy as this year's Excellence in Catholic Education Award recipient. And she will be also attending, as you heard earlier, SPICE as part of that, and recognized in the June recognition event by the trustees. So we congratulate Father Lacombe on both award recipient or nominees and recipient, and Tammy and her excellent Catholic education.
Yes, Father Coleman, very pleased to have David and Clark Harmony and
Yes.
Tammy, who is in the Excellence in Catholic Education Award. Personally, I worked with Tammy, I worked in that school, and she's just amazing, so couldn't have picked a better person. Very, very happy about all of this. And we're very proud as far as our Catholic. Thank you. Now on to the action items. Should we, would you like to have a little short break? Okay, go ahead.
I think.
Okay, go ahead, okay. So we'll go on to policy 5, role of the board chair. And this would be, so Marilyn, would you like to make a motion?
No, move it, let's try. I move that the board give policy 5 and the role of the board chair, first and second readings presented.
Thank you. So the board is going to give, I'll just say it a little bit louder. It was hard for you to talk. The board will give policy 5, role of the board chair, first and second reading as presented. That was the motion made by trustee Burke. Is there any discussion on this? No discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you, passed. Still with trustee Burke. Policy 7, board operations. Go ahead, trustee Burke.
It means that the board give policy 7, board operations, first and second reading as presented.
Thank you, trustee Burke asked that the board give policy 7, board operations, first and second reading as presented. Is there any discussion around policy 7, first and second reading? Discussion? And I will call the question. All those in favor? Passed. And we're still with trustee Burke. So 6.3, policy 8, committee of the board, trustee Burke.
That the board give policy 8, committees of the board, first and second reading as presented.
Trustees can have a look and see if there's any discussion regarding this motion. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Now on to 6.4, policy 16, recruitment and selection of personnel. Trustee Burke.
That the board give policy 16, recruitment and selection of personnel, first and second reading as presented.
Thank you. Trustee Linner.
I wish to amend that to that the board give policy 16, recruitment and selection of personnel, first reading as presented.
So we'll be voting on the amendment. Is there any discussion as to that amendment? All this, oh, sorry, trustee Linner.
Yeah, I just say that I would like to leave that section in it. Just, it speaks on local trustees being able to choose to serve as additional members on the advisory panel at their discretion for the hiring of principals. I think that this is important as it allows the local trustee to act in an advisory role. It gives some confidence in the individual who is selected, that there was some local input put into that decision, as well as it helps keep us as trustees accountable to the role that we have designated to.
And first I need to ask the parliamentarian, do we need to vote on that amendment first? Before we discuss?
Yes.
Yes, we need to vote on the amendment first to change it from first and second reading to first reading. So all those, I'll call the question on that, on the amendment. All those in favor? Thank you. So then we're back and we've changed this to from first and second reading to first reading. So now the motion would be that the board give policy 16, recruitment and selection of personnel, first reading as presented. So now we can have discussion on this as far as the first reading. And Trustee Leonard, you did say that you would like it to stay. Did you want to comment a bit more on that?
Well, I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, I think we did. But anyone else? Trustee Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to state, I think in this policy, although we see one suggested change for first reading, that there might be other opportunities to look at this policy and ensure that all of our trustees have had an opportunity to have input into this policy, because it is something that has been a long-standing, I guess, tradition in the way that we do business in this way. So leave it for first reading for right now, and we will work our way through it to make sure that all voices are heard.
So it could be looked at before we have the second and third reading. But for now, this is the first reading. Is there any other discussion on this as far as the first reading? And I will call the question. All those in favor? Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 in favor, so then it passed the first reading. Those opposed, because you have to vote. 1, 2, 2 opposed. Thank you. So it passed the first reading and we will take it back. And now we're on to capital plan. And I will turn this over to Trustee Linder, who is the chair of the Long Range Planning Committee.
Thank you. Long Range Planning Committee spent hours discussing what we would present as our 2024-2025 capital plan. You all have it in the agenda. I'll just go through it here. Well, I guess I'll make the motion first.
Okay.
So I move that the board approve the capital plan in the following priority order. Number 1, Beaumont High School, new build. Number 2, new school, Leduc, new build. Number 3, St. Benedict's modernization. Number 4, Sacred Heart modernization / high school. Number 5, Christ the King modernization. Number 6, École Notre Dame modernization. And number 7, St. Anthony's modernization.
Any discussion as far as this motion? Trustee Taylor?
Madam Chair. I do of course agree with number 1, the Beaumont High School. And last year, a new build in Leduc was not even on the radar, not at all. Suddenly this year, number 2 for a new school build in Leduc. I'm not sure that 2 brand new buildings, a request of 2 brand new buildings is a good idea. And I wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize number 1 priority. And last year, St. Ben's was our second priority. And I'm thinking that we should do that at a second. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Trustee Marco?
I just wanted to ask if you could provide some insight. I'm just looking at the rationale between 4 and 5 for Sacred Heart and, Christ the King. I know they both have need, Sacred Heart does have a higher capacity, but the building condition of Christ the King is a higher need, if I'm reading this chart correctly. So can you provide some insight as to how those, because I believe Christ the King was without Sacred Heart in the past, so just wondering if you could provide some insight regarding that rationale.
Absolutely. Our committee, as I said, spent hours on this. There was at one point where we had those flipped. We kind of tossed it back and forth. And honestly, that capacity was what put us over. Anything over, as you all know, anything over 85% capacity is using rooms that aren't meant for classrooms as classrooms. So we felt that the facility condition index is important as well, but that the difference in capacity outweighed in this specific instance that condition index, the difference between those. Yeah, not an easy decision to make by any means, but we had to rank them somehow. So we chose to decide that increasing capacity or exceeding capacity over 85 was more of a concern.
You have a follow-up question?
I do, I'm just trying to figure out how to word it. Do you look, and I appreciate, because I've been on the long range planning, so I appreciate that it can take a lot and it's challenging to pick which schools to put in which order. Just knowing the difference between the communities, I know that Wetaskiwin doesn't have a lot of population growth where Leduc does. And that could potentially impact in the coming years. Knowing how long it takes the government to approve modernization projects, I just wonder if that's in the best interest of all of the schools based on potential growth that could happen more in Leduc than Wetaskiwin. And I feel that the Wetaskiwin representative isn't here, so maybe that's not a fair question to bring up at this time. I would be fine with leaving it the way it is.
So yes, we did take into account the growing, the year-over-year growth of each community. So that was factored in.
Okay, thank you.
That was a big factor as far as Beaumont High School too, because their growth is quite a bit. Trustee Miller, you've got a question.
More so a comment. I also want to echo the comments that have been made in regards to the amount of time that we have spent debating, researching, really looking into the information and making sure the recommendation that we're bringing forward to the board and the committee was really well thought about this time around. And in regards to a new build in Leduc, when we look at Father Leduc at 102%, and look at some of the other schools within Leduc that are also in need in different areas, whether it's either a capacity or the FCI number, that we will need a new school in Leduc. Leduc is growing and we will need it. And although it hasn't appeared on past capital plans, it has been a discussion in previous years that we need to kind of start watching these numbers. And I think knowing how long it takes to get approved, where with the numbers that we're currently at for either a new build and or modernization, that putting a new build on the capital plan in the Leduc area this year puts us on a path towards having a new build in Leduc, and there's different options of what that new build might look like in Leduc. But I'm really happy with the way the list came out this year. It was really well thought out, well discussed, researched, debated. So I hope that the board of trustees can vote in favor of what's being presented today.
Any other discussion? Yes, trustee Taylor, suggests.
Also, when there is a new school that is almost completed in the beginning. And this could have an impact on our schools. That there may be some of them students going to the school. Which would be their needs.
Any
So,
public school.
But yeah, public.
so long range planning, we discussed this as well. Actually, we took it almost from the other end of, it could actually put more stress on our schools because of the grade configuration with that new school. A lot of, some parents might perceive that they don't want,
So, yeah, 8 to 12.
Some of the parents might not want their grade 7s and 8s in a high school. So that could actually put more pressure as opposed to the alternative where new school attracts more people. So, and we'll have to see, I guess, what the capacity that results in. But thus far, we haven't seen decreases in our numbers of students in those schools. We didn't think that would go forward. With both students from our schools.
Any other discussion? And I will call the question. All those in favor? This motion. So we have 5 in favor. 6, well. Forgot to count myself. Thank you. I'll move on to 6.6, graduating mass intentions. That turns over to Superintendent Bouchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have before you backgrounder indicating the longstanding tradition of this board to make a $100 donation to the local parish per graduation class. So there's proposed motion included there. I would ask that the board consider honoring that longstanding tradition of sponsoring or recognizing each graduating class in the parish to the amount of $100.
Thank you. Ask trustee to put forward this motion. Trustee Leonard.
I move that the board approve special mass intentions and individual recognition of the Division High School graduates to a maximum of $100 donation to the local parish per graduation class for the 2023-2024 school year.
Is there any discussion on this motion? No discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor? We move on to 6.7. 2024-2025 Education and Transportation Service Division fees, and I will turn this over to Trustee Miller, Chair of the Finance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll put the motion forward first and then provide some commentary. Thank you. I move that the board maintain all division fees at the current 2023-24 levels for the 24-25 school year.
Give some
Thank you.
further discussion, Trustee Miller.
So the student fees and other fees require that the board review these division fees on an annual basis. So the board directed the committee to review these fees and look at it. Last year, if you remember, we did put out a survey to our families, constituents, and parents within the division that use different areas of those fees. And some of the information, I believe, is from last year was taken into consideration by the committee. to help make its decision. Also, cross jurisdictional analysis was taken of, I believe, six similar school boards across the province that are similar to us were looked at and the fees taken into consideration in this area. So as far as division fees, it includes the eligible and non-eligible transportation fees, foreign student tuition, adult student fees, technology fees, kindergarten fees. Yeah, I think that was all of them. So those are the division fees, and looking at the information from last year and looking at the boards that we compared ourselves to, the committee is recommending that no changes in the division fees be made for this year.
For any further discussion? School division fees. Yes, trustee Nguyen.
I just have a question, that analysis with the 6 other school boards. Where did STAR rank there?
I'll let trustee Nguyen answer that question.
Thank you. Without going back to my notes, and maybe I may ask Secretary Treasurer to assist in answering this question, but I think I recall in most areas, we were midline in most of the fees.
Yeah, that's correct. We have just put onto the board, the analysis of those surveys when put into comparison. We actually noted that some banks are not charging any transportation fees. I think that the school boards, they are not even charging transportation fee. And one board is charging transportation fee for eligible students. Just everyone just charged a particular fee, and 2 divisions will be or are actually charging a bus registration fee. Those are the noted exceptions or differences, but except for those, all other fees appear to be within this reserved language. And meaning that our fees as on this particular table, they actually range within the same languages. So yeah, I think that is the basis where the committee actually arrived at that decision.
Any other discussion? And I will call the question. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. 6.8, 2024-2025 school facility rental fee schedule. I turn this over to trustee Miller.
So I move that the board increase the current fees by 5% as presented on form 547-2 for the 2024-2025 school year.
Any discussion as far as this? Oh, trustee Miller?
Just a quick comment, the increase in of the 5% would be, it's generally utilities and inflation for the use of these facilities.
Any other question, trustee Nguyen?
It's just a question, like this doesn't affect in any way our JUPA.
Secretary Treasurer, can you answer that?
Okay, yeah, these particularly would not affect on the JUPA. Basically, the JUPA recognizes that putting 2 things in those particular agreements. One is to do with the high level, which is the site allocations of municipal land or for reserve land, and the other one is to deal with the joint use. So this actually falls in the realm of the joint use. So in terms of the joint use, all the agreements that we have, where we have shared facilities through that process, then we don't charge them anything. So this is over and above those that are outside the joint use agreements. So this doesn't affect those agreements.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, yes, trustee Taylor Saros.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Don, this is only like a $1 an hour increase?
Depends on the amount, 5%, so some it's a dollar, some it's a bit more.
Oh, okay.
That's correct, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Any other questions? Then I will call the questions. I will call the question. All those in favor? That was passed unanimously. Thank you. So now 6.9, I would like to take us in camera. Could I have someone make a motion to take us in camera? Trustee Burt?
I will say we take.
Thank you. We'll go on camera and just have the trustees present. Everyone else. We'll be ready. We, also-
Yeah.